Ladies and gentlemen, my name's Paul, and in this redgamingtech.com video, we're going to be discussing as well as analysing tech news which, as usual, has popped up in the past 24 or so hours. By goodness, the last 2 days have been absolutely crazy with tech news, and today's no exception. We're going to start things out with Nvidia's RTX 30 or RTX 21 or whatever Jensen decides to call these latest GeForce cards, as there's yet another update concerning the memory configuration and possible release schedule, and this comes to us via Chip Hell. I'll of course link the post in the description of the video. Long story short, we will see 3 cards launch, most likely in early September, and these will be the Titan variant of the GeForce lineup, the RTX, I'm going to call it the 30 series, but it could be called anything, the 3080 Ti or possibly 3090. There is still some confusion of what Nvidia will decide to call this part, and then there will also be the 3080. This is pure speculation that I'm about to provide here, so please take it as such, but I wouldn't be surprised if Nvidia does launch it as the 3090 and then the Ti comes later as kind of like a in-between of both the two cards, because as you're about to hear, there is actually quite a gulf between the specifications. In terms of memory anyway, we're unsure so much about the CUDA cores, although COPT7, Kimi and a few others have leaked this. But of course, how accurate this information is and whether Nvidia decides to change anything last minute, we don't know. But getting back to the memory configuration, the RTX Titan is allegedly going to feature 24 gigabytes of memory, and that is a lot of VRAM, but even the 3090 or 3080 Ti is apparently going to have 20 gigabytes, but this is halved for the 3080 configuration. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm still very happy that Nvidia are doing this. It's curious because the high end from AMD is said to be 16 and 12 gigabytes, but as we all know, memory compression is also a thing. It's possible that Nvidia have some type of memory compression technology on their GPU or something else which will help out, or maybe they just predict that it's not worth it, and maybe they feel that saving the monies on the RAM is actually more important because they feel perhaps that the die itself of the GPU plus other components is going to be rather expensive, so perhaps that's the route they're going. I'm really hyped to see what the next generation of cards from both Nvidia and AMD bring to the table, quite honestly. It's not that the, say, 2080 Ti is bad, it's still an amazing GPU, but A, I want high-end cards from AMD because competition equals good, as I always say, and B, with the next generation consoles coming out, I think having new waves of cards from both companies is just going to be awesome. I think that the 3070, for example, is going to be ridiculously powerful, and I also expect kind of the mid to high range from AMD to be much the same. And given technology such as DLSS is of course advancing rather rapidly, I suspect that the next few generations of games on PC are going to be quite astounding. Furthermore, the same leaker also claims that this rumour that's been going around that Nvidia will kind of nerf the specifications or performance of the card early on and then will up it depending on what's happening with AMD is apparently a load of crap. What may happen is Nvidia release kind of like a refresh, maybe next year, much like they did with the 20 series, which obviously will have like higher clock frequencies or maybe more SMs enabled or whatever. But in terms of actually nerfing the performance, well, that's just not something Nvidia would want to do, because obviously not only are they competing with the RX 6000 series from AMD, assuming they call it that, but they're also competing with yous coughing up money. We all know that money is not exactly growing on trees right now, what with the recession because of obvious reasons, which I can't say because of YouTube, and also the next generation consoles. Plus, also, a good number of people are quite happy with their GTX 1080 Ti's or RTX, 2080 Supers or whatever. So, as always, Nvidia will want to better themselves. Given there is so much at the moment in terms of rumour of Nvidia kind of having some type of massive leap for the next generation. I'm super excited to see what happens with the future of graphics. This is kind of a itsy bitsy video today. I normally do things in alphabetical order, but that went straight out the window because I decided to do Nvidia first. And so now we're going to tackle Bloodborne for PC rumours. And this is quite interesting. I'll link the original video in the description of this one. But long story short, there are reports now that Bloodborne for PC is being tested. And there are some limitations apparently on the port. One of those is that if you're a PC gamer expecting just, for example, 144Hz support or whatever, that's apparently not going to be a thing. And the reason behind this is that the animation of the game and just the game engine itself has been really coded around 60, so there needs to be that limitation in place. I'm sure that there will be modders and people who really go in and kind of try to fix this and improve things, but as it is, the port itself, This, however, will also see a release on the PlayStation 5, and I think it makes sense. So, I got a bit of a confession for you all. I actually knew about the Bloodborne port for some time, and I wasn't allowed to say anything. Sorry. Yeah, I know it exists. I was 100% certain. I actually did drop a couple of subtle hints in videos that there would be a lot of PS4 and PS5 games that make their way to PC, and this is one of them. Yeah. I don't know if it's got any additional features, much like this leaker said. I've tried to find out, and I was simply told by a couple of people I've spoken to that they're not sure, they just know that there are drastic improvements in the game itself. So this is from this individual, but also from myself, from a couple of different people now that I've spoken to. Bloodborne PC is real, and it is also coming to the PlayStation 5. I don't know whether it's got features like hardware-based ray tracing. I'm assuming so, given it's also going to be on the PS5 too. And I'm honestly just really hyped, because Bloodborne on the PS4 was amazing. I actually really loved it. I really did. I'm not that great at those type of like Dark Souls games, I'll just be honest. But Bloodborne, with a few exceptions of some gameplay mechanics that I didn't like, one of those being the farming of certain materials. For example, blood vials kind of annoyed me, and also bullets. I feel that that was a little... I feel that from quality of life reasons, I just wish that if you rested and stuff like that at Lantern, it would give you some back. I know that that's not an opinion not everyone shares, but this is just how I feel. I feel that it kind of just makes fighting against bosses and smashing your face against the wall kind of grindy. Long story short, though, I think the game was amazing. The music, the atmosphere. I personally, once again, I know this is subjective, but I personally preferred it over the older games, Dark Souls games, not older games, Dark Souls games. So yeah, I'm almost positive that this port exists. One rumour that I'm also hearing is that the Sony console exclusivity thing is kind of real. I don't know the specifics, I don't know how many games it's going to be for, but I'm hearing that the PC will receive versions of games which are for the PlayStation 5, say like we saw with Street Fighter 5, but in some cases those games will be delayed, let's say a year after the PS5 version. I'm not sure about the timelines, and I'm not sure about the specifics, because this is kind of like whispers from different people, and they're not such reliable sources, but I am certain that there will be more Sony games coming to the PC. I just think that they're going to be very selective. This is not something I've heard, so please don't take this as a leak, but I wouldn't be surprised if titles like, say, God of War, or other really important games on the PS5 get ported as well. And I know this may upset some PlayStation gamers, but look at the wordings that Sony have used when pushing, for example, Horizon Zero Dawn 2, with the announcement of Horizon Zero Dawn's release on the PC. They're essentially saying, yeah, you can play this, you can, but you know what, if you want to play it first, you have to, if you want to pay the next installment of the adventure, yeah, you got to buy a PS5. And I think it just makes sense. Sony want you in their bloody ecosystem. And it's not even about the sales of the game. It's about actually marketing and sending a message. And honestly, as a PC gamer primarily, this is fantastic for me. I'm going to be very curious to see how all of this unfolds over the next few years. Arguably, it's great for PC because we're kind of getting like some of the PlayStation scraps. Honestly, we're not getting all of the games, obviously. And we're also getting most of the Xbox games as well. So I feel as like a PC gamer, this is like a win-rah. I don't want to turn this into a PC versus console thing because, well, yeah, there is obviously a price difference between how much you're paying, for a PC versus a PlayStation. And there is also a lot of arguments that PC gaming is more difficult. You've got more setup and all of this stuff. But personally, I'm just hyped. I really want to play a 60 FPS version of Bloodborne on the PC, and I'm really hopeful that you can do something insane. Like, imagine downscaling it from like 16K. I mean, assuming we'll have to see how graphically intensive it is, but maybe if Papa provides with the RTX 30 series, then we can do that. And we also have a couple of other pieces of news for the console. We'll discuss the PlayStation 5 first. Allegedly, the pre-orders for the PlayStation 5 will be going live really soon. There's a post from a Twitter user, Mr. King, and they are stating that according to what they're hearing from PlayStation, according to what they're hearing from Sony in Saudi Arabia, there is actually a poll now coming out for the PlayStation 5, and it does actually mention pre-orders. And it looks like pre-orders will be open soon. Ah yes, that word soon. Everyone loves that word. What does soon mean? I personally think it's not going to be much longer than a month before Sony opens up the pre-orders. One of the things I did already report on is, according to one of my sources, the PlayStation 5 will be getting a teardown by the end of August. Now, I will be curious to see whether this is still the case, because there's also something very interesting for Camp Microsoft as well. Shinobi, who is a very well-known industry insider, he posts on both Twitter as well as the Reset Era forums, I'll link his post in the description, has actually commented that there's a possibility that Microsoft will be holding back the announcement of both Xbox Series S as well as the pricing for these systems for a month. Now, there is a possibility that some of the reason that this is happening is because of the recent discussions of the delay, for example, for Halo Infinite. If I had to guess, one of the things that Microsoft is doing right now is trying to figure out exactly what their launch lineup is going to be comprised of, and also doing their best to market around the fact that Halo Infinite is going to be missing. I've mentioned yesterday in a video that I think Microsoft made the only logical choice they could. In the end of the day, a delayed game has a very good chance of being good if you keep polishing it, improving on it. But if you rush a game and it's like just a crappy experience, not accurate gameplay, the graphics aren't where you expect them to be, it hurts you as a company. Especially when it's kind of like your window in to the next generation, right? It's like Halo is just, yeah, it's Halo. It needs to be just... yeah, it needs to hit all the marks. It's Halo. I think Microsoft made the only choice they could. I think the next generation is going to be amazing, honestly. I think that Sony and Microsoft are going to be really, really hitting their stride in about a year. It's like always, every single console generation. It's like 12 months after the console's launch that the big kind of games which really fully take advantage of the hardware is going to start launching. And the other thing too is that I suspect with the next generation, it's going to be very different in terms of how the design of games as well come into the fray. With the PS4, for example, it's, yes, more powerful than the PlayStation 3, but it's kind of just the PS3, but with better graphics and a few changes here and there. It's got way more RAM, so you can have better environments, blah, 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 blah. But it doesn't really shift the fundamental understanding of how you can create a game. Whereas with the next generation, that's not the case. There are several things, and I've gone over these before, but just the SSD alone in either console is massive. It basically allows you to create these massive interconnected worlds, which would just be impossible on a standard, like, a hard drive. Like the Xbox's Velocity architecture, the PlayStation 5's SSD, blah blah blah. And, of course, things like hardware-based ray tracing. Not only can you use hardware-based ray tracing for, well, you know, visuals, but as I've discussed with Nvidia previously in an interview, you can also use hardware-based ray tracing for tons of other stuff, like sound calculations and even AI. So this is going to be something that is going to continue to evolve over the next several years. And with hardware-based ray tracing too, it also allows you to do things which were just not possible gameplay-wise with previous games. I've used this example several times before, but imagine you're playing like an online competitive title, right? And you are seeing, like, you know, your vision right now is like towards maybe a corner. So the corner's like that, you know, you're here, corner's around there, and you're like, okay, I can't see what's around the corner. Do I go round and possibly get shot in the face? But you can kind of look at a parked car, and what is actually beyond the car is being reflected on the wing mirrors, or perhaps the main mirrors of the car. And it's like, that would just be impossible to do with traditional effects. I mean, you could do it, but it's so difficult. So I think that hardware-based ray tracing is going to be amazing for the next-gen consoles, and I think that it's going to be an extraordinary couple of years in tech. With all of that said, though, I'm going to run off because it is insanely hot here in the UK, and I am sweating. But with all of that said, thank you very much for watching the video. If you did enjoy it, you know what to do. Click the likey button and also subscribe to the channel, and of course click the bell icon too. And with that said, have an amazing day. Bye for now.